Enzo Maresca has left Chelsea after 5 key moments caused a breakdown in his relationship with the club. The 45-year-old was given the boot on New Year's Day after weeks of internal frustration and confusion, despite winning 2 trophies last season. Sign up for the Chelsea newsletter. Thank you. Enzo Maresca has left his job as Chelsea manager. Credit, Reuters. The Italian leaves Stamford Bridge with the Blues 5th in the Premier League table. Credit, GETTY. SunSport runs you through the 5 problems which have resulted in Maresca leaving Stamford Bridge. Man City. Chelsea sources have accused Maresca of speaking to rivals Manchester City about replacing Pep Guardiola at the Etihad. Those talks are said to be the beginning of the end for the Italian at Chelsea. Maresca is said to have informed Chelsea that discussions with figures close to Man City were happening ahead of a potential vacancy at the end of this season. Read more football news. Despite being informed due to contractual obligations, the talks went down poorly within Stamford Bridge and were viewed as disrespectful towards Maresca's employers. Maresca worked as Guardiola's assistant during their treble-winning season, and the City boss recently described his close friend as one of the best managers in the world. Manchester City played down suggestions of talks with Maresca and insist there is no vacancy to interview for. Medical row. Potential replacements for Maresca. Here is a look at the potential candidates to replace Enzo Maresca in Chelsea's dugout. Liam Rossinier. Liam Rossinier, like Maresca, would arrive at Chelsea without any Premier League managerial experience. He is currently impressing at Strasbourg in League One, with the French side battling for a European spot. Rossinier would be a fairly simple hire for the Blues, considering Clearlake also own the Alsace outfit. Cesc Fabregas. The former Chelsea midfielder has built himself a solid reputation in the dugout since taking charge of Como 1907. The Spaniard led the club to promotion from Serie B to the top flight of Italian football for the first time in 21 years. Cesc Fabregas now has Como pushing for European qualification, and he is viewed as one of the most promising managers in the top leagues. Xavi. Xavi has been out of football management since being sacked by Barcelona in 2024. However, he is still highly regarded, having led the La Liga giants to a league and Spanish Super Cup double in 2023 despite financial constraints. Chelsea would be free to talk to Xavi over a deal, and there would be no compensation to be paid. Oliver Glasner. Oliver Glasner has been one of the most impressive managers in the Premier League since his arrival at Crystal Palace in 2024. He has led the Eagles to FA Cup and Community Shield glory in his short time in South London. The Austrian has previously been tipped for the top job at Manchester United should Ruben Amorim be sacked. Marco Silva. A move for Marco Silva could prove difficult due to the Portuguese boss currently in charge of West London rivals Fulham. The former Hull City and Everton manager has brought the Cottagers back to the Prem and helped solidify their spot. Silva has long been backed for a chance at a top job, and Chelsea could represent a decent opportunity. Andoni Iraola. Bournemouth have just dealt with a summer of losing some of their best players like Dean Huijsen and Ilya Zabarny. They could now face the prospect of seeing their Basque boss walk out on the club if Chelsea come calling. Andoni Iraola led the Cherries to a 9th-place finish in his first season in the Prem and earned plenty of plaudits in doing so. John Terry. Now, John Terry does not have any managerial experience but would certainly be the romantic choice. Chelsea have previously given chances to Frank Lampard in the dugout and could opt to do the same with Terry. Terry has some experience in coaching, having previously held assistant roles at Aston Villa and Leicester City. Bonus, the special one. If they get desperate, there is also the option of making a move for the old reliable José Mourinho. The iconic manager is currently leading Benfica in his homeland but could be tempted by a third stint in charge of the Blues. He previously won 3 Prem titles, 3 League Cups and an FA Cup during his previous 2 spells in charge. Enzo Maresca told the Chelsea brass that he'd twice spoken to Manchester City about replacing Pep Guardiola credit, EPA. Maresca has done nothing to calm talk of discontent behind the scenes at Chelsea, most read in football. Figures within the club were baffled when he described the 2 days leading up to a 2-0 win over Everton as the worst 48 hours of his time in the job. Maresca did not explain himself to baffled club staff, nor did he do so publicly, but sources believe it was now in reference to advice from the medical team on how long players could be used. The club feel Maresca ignored advice from doctors in terms of how long it was safe for certain players to be on the pitch and that he kept them in games longer while chasing results. There was specific concern around the Atalanta defeat in the Champions League. Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez have both played large parts of this season while dealing with niggling injuries. However, Maresca was booed for removing Cole Palmer on 63 minutes against Bournemouth as they managed the England man's return from injury. Public comments. Maresca's dig about the worst 48 hours was not the only thinly veiled attack on the club in recent weeks. Following that Bournemouth press conference, club sources insisted the manager's comments were merely an emotional response to an emotional win. However, in a following press conference, Maresca was at pains to make it clear that what he had said was not an emotional response, and something that was premeditated. That Maresca has felt emboldened to air his displeasure in public rather than behind closed doors has also caused frustration. Enzo Maresca's voicing of his displeasure in public also strained his relationship with the board. Credit. Getty. Poor results. It is the one thing that, eventually, gets any manager his P45. If Maresca had been taking on his club bosses and policy in public while on a wild winning run, there would be little those above could do about it. However, a serious mid-season slump, for the second campaign in a row, has prompted the club to act. The 2-2 draw with Bournemouth, having led 2-1, meant the Blues have now dropped a Premier League high 15 points from winning positions this season, seen as unsustainable. Add in the Champions League and that is 20 points across both competitions surrendered from winning positions, with figures at the club pointing out Arsenal having given up just 5. Poor results on the pitch have also cost Enzo Maresca his job. Credit, Shutterstock, skipping press conference. Perhaps the most damning act, which Chelsea insiders felt spoke of a lack of respect for the staff and club. Following the 2-2 draw with Bournemouth on Tuesday, assistant Willy Caballero was sent out to face the media in Maresca's place. The club and Caballero both said at the time that the manager was ill, but it has now emerged from all sides that this was not the case and it was a refusal by Maresca to face the music. Recommended stories. That decision was poorly received by the club hierarchy, who felt it was unprofessional and threw Caballero under the bus by asking the coach to lie on Maresca's behalf. Caballero could be in charge at Manchester City if a replacement is not appointed by then.